Hello and welcome to another episode of State of My Art Podcast. My name is Mike Liorti. I'm here in my van in California filming this last minute intro vid. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday. For today's episode, I speak with my good friend, David Hagler. David Hagler is a software developer from Arnold, Missouri, and he's one of the smartest people I know. It's always interesting catching up with David and seeing what he's been working on, and this visit was no exception. David is in the early coding stages of building an advanced virtual world where your actual movements trigger the keyframes on your avatar, and you can build just about anything. So you already know I had to bring up my crazy artist video game idea. I stopped at David's house while driving down here to California, and we recorded this podcast during the dying minutes of December 13th, 2020. Let's do it. We're really doing it. I'm here at David Hagler's house with David Hagler. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being on the show, buddy.
Glad you come out here, man. Every time you come by St. Louis, it's like, just come on by. So, I don't know how many times you've been through here and crashed out.
This house, probably 3 or 4 times.
I've been here 3 years, yeah. I think that's about right. So.
And then the other house where my van got stuck, probably also 2 or 3 times.
That was quite the fiasco.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Always nice to be here, and I appreciate you always putting me up and helping me out, fixing my toys.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Fixed all your broken stuff.
Yeah.
Your MacBook. Whatever happened to that MacBook?
So that RAM that I bought was bad. You were right. So I thought it was my logic board. So my logic board died 4 times.
Yeah.
And then I went to Montreal and I was playing a headlining show, really stoked, and my RAM started failing, which I bought 3 weeks before the show, and my computer was like faster than ever. Got a solid state drive, got 16 gig RAM, and my laptop was flying. And then that show, I was like, what the heck is that noise? Played 5 shows after that were fine. And then played St. Louis, crashed again, even worse. And you were like, it sounds like RAM. And then the only way we could find out was we popped the RAM out, popped it in your computer. You diagnosed it. You had a RAM diagnosing program. And you were like, yeah, it's bad RAM. And we went to...
Again.
What's the computer store down?
Micro Center.
Micro Center.
Yeah, they're good for like all kinds of stuff, man. They got everything.
Bought the exact same RAM, which is such a pain because I couldn't go return it because I bought the RAM at Canada Computers. And chances are they would have been like, no, you already opened it. Like, you could have broke this RAM.
Yeah, totally.
So I had to buy it again.
We talked at the time about building you like a monster Hackintosh. We talked about. I regret that we didn't get a chance to do that. That'd have been super fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still thinking about the Mac Mini approach and the Hackintosh approach. So I still have the same Hackintosh. I actually travel with it now because I'm doing these podcasts, which has become like a traveling podcast, which I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I know how you are. Like you have like a van addiction, I think.
I'm always on the road, and I figure I may as well pop in while everyone's home doing nothing and socially distance a podcast. But anyways, I ended up buying another MacBook Pro 2012. So mine was a 2011, and a 5th logic board died. And I was like, hey, are these still under warranty? And they're like, we don't even have them anymore. That thing's over 7 years old. Like, it's no longer a recall issue.
Did you ever follow up on that Louis Rossmann thing I pointed you to?
I never needed to.
Yeah.
But I definitely have it in my back pocket now because if this 2012 causes issues, which it shouldn't. Like, I literally popped my RAM and my hard drive out from my broken 2011 and popped it into this new one, and it was running like even better. I'm still on Mountain Lion.
Wow.
I know. This is my 3rd podcast in 2 days, and the ones I was doing.
I don't even know what they're on right now. It's been a while because Mountain Lion, then Snow Leopard, and then when did Catalina come out?
All my stuff is so behind that.
Now.
Even like my Pro Tools, I'm just like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I was just say the same thing, yeah.
Like, and don't like spend a bunch of money getting the same plugs, but 64-bit or whatever. Like, It sounds good to me. It sounds better than most of my friends who are on 64-bit who are just like getting into DAWs. So, I mean, I'm back where I started. Now I have USB 3.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, man, what have you been up to?
Mostly same thing I've been doing for a long time, programming. This last year was kind of rough. I think it is for kind of everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So I've been doing a little bit of software development with some friends, been building some cool programs. We wrote a little virtual world you can play around in. I was kind of demoing that earlier. That's kind of what's on the screen right now.
Yeah, we'll B-roll some of we'll screen record some of it and B-roll it because that's pretty interesting. It's like a virtual reality going to Mars.
Yeah, it's a little browser. So it's a browser program you can jump in and play. So me and two other guys worked on it for this year, and they broke off and are doing their own thing in Unity. And I'm going to keep doing the one that this is written in Babylon.js and Node.js is the back end, and I'm just going to keep following through with this. Maybe find some people that are interested in it eventually.
Sweet.
I've also been doing this animation studio thing where so this is going to be kind of one of those like embarrassing guilty pleasure things. I kind of like the VTuber phenomenon. It's just silly and I don't know why.
What is that?
So yeah, the VTubers are kind of weird and kind of creepy. It's an out there thing, but they're good people. That's they'll play video games, but they instead of having like their face on the video, it'll actually just be like an animated character. So it's a 2-dimensional animated character, but they wired into face tracking so that it reacts with them actually doing things in the game. So it's kind of like it's a merger of kind of where AI is going, right? Where you can have an avatar instead of yourself on the screen. I would totally replace myself with an avatar right now if I could. But I was really interested in the problem domain. So I'm a software developer by trade. I don't know if I mentioned that when we were talking, but
I'll do a little intro and let them know that. But yeah, you can go into it.
I've been doing that for 21, 22 years, some crazy amount of time. It seems like forever. And I decided that the problem domain of doing the animation stuff was really interesting to me as well. And so I started doing a couple of live streams on Twitch, and they I had a few viewers. I mean, I wasn't getting the greatest thing, but I've been live streaming this video studio or an animation studio that I was writing for the browser, all in like React, and it uses a couple of like
Canva.
I don't know that one. No.
So Canva is actually just like what I call it is like a Photoshop online. So what you're doing is almost like a Canva, but for
I need to go like check that website out at some point.
So it's like a graphic design, but you don't have to download all the fonts. You don't have to download all the clip art.
I think what would be really cool. So like there's tools like that. There's a couple of tools for this 3D website. There's a couple of websites online that let you model 3-dimensional like objects or whatever, so you can kind of just go in and as a CAD. One of them was like, I think it's called Block Builder or something like that, or but the idea is that you can go in, you can make a cool little model, and I think it'd be really cool to do integrations with programs like that. So like this Canva you were talking about, you edit your artwork, but it technically saves on my servers, so you can just have it automatically on the virtual world. So if you're building a virtual world, you want to do some kind of nice little like artwork for the screen. You can go
billboard
and edit it.
on the game.
Billboard. Yeah, absolutely. Stuff like that, or maybe you can edit like the grass texture to have something, or maybe you're editing with a particle effect and you need a blood splatter pattern. That'd be a good one to do in an art product, and you can bring it in real easy. So with integrations like that would be really excellent. All right, so like this is the code, I guess you could say, like kind of runs everything, and like it's pretty kind of mundane. Like I don't think anyone really wants to see code too much. But this like defines like the general like how the thing loads up, and I'll load it up here in Chromium. So yeah, this is the 3D environment. There's still like stuff kind of being worked out, like bugs and whatnot, but you can walk around when I again right now I'm going to change some debug settings here. I can turn gravity's already off. Good.
This is like Minecraft. To me.
Yeah, like so that cube kind of makes you think like it's Minecraft, right? Because it's like this cube in the middle of the world. But like the idea is that you can come in and you can build stuff. Right now, part of the problem is like I said, the other team abandoned this. The other part of the team abandoned this version, and so what's happened is like I don't have the asset servers, so I can't do I can't upload new data to the system. I actually been working on reverse engineering that for my own, like for a local system. Okay. So I can't like show
all the stuff you can do. But like I can make this cube larger or something like that, right? It's got a you can scale it, so I can make it a little bigger, right? So I can make it bigger or smaller, that kind of thing. But then you can also do other stuff with it. It's not. This isn't actually a cube. This is what's called a cell mesh. And a cell mesh is actually kind of more interesting. Like it allows you to do things. So we actually kind of come up with this stuff from Second Life. That's where we all basically did a lot of our gaming and play alone.
Second Life?
Yeah, Second Life's a virtual world that you can kind of do the same stuff in it. You should be able to, yeah, I can shift click to clone it. I can edit this original one here. And then I can, I could give it like a texture, but it won't work because I don't have assets, and the assets server is missing. So it's kind of broken, but I can show this, you know, this basic thing. I can say, hey, this is actually a triangular shape. And so you can see it like generates a triangle here. And then I can make, it's so bright. I don't know why it's so damn bright. It's got like, it's like fonging. It's like super bright or something. But you can do this, like, you can taper it. So like as it draws the triangular shape, it tapers down to a small point here.
Okay, yeah.
So you can kind of twist. And the idea is that like if you do this tapering thing where it cuts it into a singular, like you can basically define this you can define these parameters on these meshes. And the idea is that it allows you to just have like low, I don't know how to explain it, like low information, high detail surfaces. So you can kind of just make things. You can skew and twist, tilt. Okay. And so like if you warp these around, you can turn these into different shapes that you might want. And then you just use these to construct things in a game, right? It's like you can just have these surfaces that are interesting to model around. If it had a texture on it, it would look a little bit more like something instead of just this weird, smooth, flat, very flat looking. Right. Space. Can I do so I can build, I just right click build here, and so there's a new object, and like it's a little obtuse because the UI is like rough. We had a really cool demo area that's also lost to just existence because all that stuff got deleted. I'm in the process of trying to restore that and fix my asset server. I can say this is no longer a primitive mesh, and so I can just remove the primitive mesh and the mesh renderer. And then what I can do is I can say, hey, this is, oh, it doesn't have a material anymore either. So I can remove the material, and I can just say it's a light. So I can say it's a point light. And so now this is actually just a light. Oh, I think that if I do this, it'll, oh, I moved that way over. Yeah, I don't know why it's not working. So there's still like bugs and stuff that I have to work out since we abandoned it and we don't have all that stuff. There's just things that may not be working as well as they once did.
So I have this ridiculous idea that is really far-fetched of making a video game that's based around what I do, being a traveling musician, or what my friends do, being in a band in a van together, trying to get signed and make it, you know, to the Grammys is the end goal of the game, maybe.
We need to call it something with like heavy alliteration, because when you said it, I was thinking you're just a man in a band in a van.
Yeah, I don't have a good. We just call it the artist game right now.
The artist game. That's rough.
That's not good. No.
I mean, it works for, you know, if you're trying to be not sell a game, I think.
In any case, the map is going to be huge. So picture, you know how there's like the Dance Dance Revolution version into a Guitar Hero or Rock Hero. There's that aspect, but that's only like 2% of the game, because really, in a real musician's life, if you want to go Grand Theft Auto with this game, Rockstar Games, the performance element is only going to be 2% of it, and then the backstory and the traveling to the gig and dodging the trucks, like there's going to be all these little games along.
Well, you also have to have like you have to be the ability to gain skill at fanfare, like to impress the audience, because otherwise, you got to build reputation. You got to
design your merch.
You got to design the merch. Oh, we could build an AI that
so
analyzes
that's another thing that
you
could drag over from Canva and your design thing. So have it all integrated into all these other AI virtual reality things. And yeah, you need to perform for people and audiences. You could even join as an audience member and be like, I wonder what so-and-so's up to in the game. Let's go watch their show in St. Louis.
This is totally going to ruin selling the game for you if I say this, but I just realized, like, if you made making like band art part of the game challenge and you used an AI that had active feedback, so it was a constantly learning from the system, what you could do is train an AI to recognize good band art, which could then provide the game for free. But what you're doing is you're farming the AI training so that you can then start taking that to then generate band art. That's what all the AI systems do now. You are the product, right? They just learn from you, like.
Yeah, or even YouTube learning from what people might want to watch next is what I was talking about with my buddy earlier. It's kind of becoming like a dangerous thing where you're forced to see what you already agree with.
I actually so the way I fixed that for myself is like, so I like a lot of stuff. I listen to everything from philosophy channels, politics, Minecraft videos, like a lot of retro computing stuff, like old 486s and just the stuff I grew up with.
Yeah.
And the way I did it is I actually made, so in YouTube you can create different channels or whatever.
Okay.
The channels can actually subscribe individually as if they're their own accounts. So I compartmentalize everything. So I can, if I want to go in and I see something that I want to like watch a whole bunch of videos, I can just switch to that account and then I can just watch whatever I want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea is I can switch back and I can ignore things that I don't want to see. If I just not in the mood for, like, you know, watching something, or maybe I just want to watch a Minecraft video for an hour, you know, or some stuff like that.
Yeah, now that I have 2 YouTube accounts, because I have Rosedale Music and State of My Art, I'm kind of selective with what I'm willing to watch on the State of My Art one, because I don't want that. It. Yeah, I don't want it to start looking at a lot of mainstream music videos that I can just watch on the Rosedale Music account that's already like cluttered with random stuff.
Do you use like when you're in Chrome? Do you ever use like multiple accounts in Chrome? Because that's what I tell most people to do. That's a good way to separate too.
I kind of accidentally do now too, because like I'll be checking my email in State of My Art and then checking my email in Rosedale, or switching back and forth, or uploading something to Google Drive through State of My Art, which is nice because I get an extra like 15 gigs of drive space too. But yeah, sometimes I'll be like, oh shoot, I'm in my other account on YouTube, Google Drive, and everything, especially on my phone. Like it automatically puts me in whatever one I was logged in last. If I was uploading a video on YouTube in State of My Art, now I go check my email, it's in State of My Art. So yeah, like naturally I end up bouncing between 2 accounts, which is kind of annoying sometimes. Even on Facebook I had 2 accounts because I'd maxed out my friends through trying to promote and add all these other random people that go to the same venue that I'm playing. But yeah, this video game is going to be the most realistic thing, so realistic that it probably won't ever even happen.
There was that video game that Penn and Teller made years ago. Something Bus Tour. I can't remember the name of it now.
Oh,
but
really?
It's a Penn and Teller game, and it was a reaction to, I can't remember her name, Al Gore's wife, she has an odd name. I just can't think of her name. I should know it. But she said that video games shouldn't be fun or something like that. They should be educational. Mm-hmm. And they decided to make a game that was utterly, despicably boring. And the idea is that you drive a tour bus from like Phoenix, Arizona to Las Vegas, Nevada, and that's it. Like, and it has a slight tug to the right. So like if you let it pull you off the road, it like stalls and you have to wait for a tow truck. So but you also have to wait like real time. So if you're 3 hours from it's like an 8-hour drive, by the way, at like 45 mile an hour. Like it's all you do, and you just got to keep. And
you got to sit there for 8 hours. And drive?
Yeah, it's an 8-hour drive. Like to do this. This is the game.
I was gonna say the drives are about 10 minutes of what they would be. So
yeah, no, these are like the full realistic length of time, and like. I love the game idea. Like I've never played it. I really need to play it someday just to experience.
What's it called? Bus Tour?
Yeah, it's something like Penn and Teller. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. We should probably look it up. But
And is Al Gore's wife who invented it?
No, she didn't invent it. What it was she had said something when Al Gore and a couple other politicians at the time were like, petitioning against violence in video games, like early on in video game history.
Grand Theft Auto was like
this was way before. This is Sega Genesis era. The game, I think the game actually was on a Sega Genesis, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah, and she said something offhandedly that kind of inspired this idea that we should just make a terrible game. Like, that's the point. Because, and, like, you can't define fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, here we are talking about this game, like, 30 years later.
My game idea would kind of suck. It would be boring.
That's fine.
But there would be, like, weird, fun little missions. I don't know.
You have to gamify. You gamify the intermission stuff. Like, you just have to make it so there's like side quests and things you can pick up.
Exactly.
That's how like GTA 5 and all
even Tony Hawk was kind of like that. Like,
yeah.
So I would do it so like you
God, I played so much Tony Hawk.
You randomly meet David Hagler at a St. Louis house show.
Oh, that'd be fun.
When the cops come and shut it down.
Oh my God! So we didn't talk about like how I met you. Like, we should talk about that.
Yeah, that was an interesting night.
I think it's a good story. So like. So I'll give you backstory, stuff you probably didn't know about. So at the time, the house I was staying at, I had a roommate, and he was a little younger than me. He was probably only like 18 or 19.
Put this
a little
closer. Yeah.
So yeah, the house I was staying at, I had a roommate there. He was a younger guy. He was probably like 18, 19 at the time, and I was like 28, 29.
Okay, yeah.
No, you've known me for. I think it's 6 or 7 years now. No,
so
I have a message to you from 2013.
It was 2013, this tour.
Because I remember I was looking through the text messages earlier trying to find that photo that I was talking about.
Yeah.
2013. So about 7 years that I've known you. And so it's like 30, 32, something like that. And he told me he wanted to have a show in my backyard. And I thought to myself, I've been to high school bands. I know what it's like. It's just going to be a couple of kids doing some goofy stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that anybody like that like actually was interested in like that had a like the right way to phrase it, like that actually was a musician. Like, I just figured it as some dumb high school kids doing a thing.
And yeah, you didn't know that anyone was even on tour. You thought it was just a bunch of local bands.
Literally, I thought it was like local kids and stuff like that. And then so it was a cool backdrop and then you show up with your truck and your trailer, and I'm like, wait, what's going on? Like, what kind of a show are we about to do?
Yeah,
like,
we were two bands. It was Follow Me Forward from Indianapolis.
Oh, that's right.
And which Sebastian was. Oh no, so I was with the Zawacki brothers from Virginia Beach, and we were on tour with Follow Me Forward for that week. So yeah, it was two bands rolling up with all their gear.
Yes,
into
it was
your
a
backyard.
mountain of gear out into the backyard. And then, so the irony of the whole thing too, I'll get to that. So you're setting things up, and I'm like, oh my God, there's gonna be a lot of shit going down. Like, I can already just tell, like, it's gonna be like legit. To my favorite part of that was I made sure that I told the kids, I said, look, I know it's gonna be mostly like high schoolers and maybe people that are just outside, like, young guys, 20 under, that kind of stuff, going to be showing up because it's him inviting his friends, right?
Yeah.
I told him, like, absolutely no alcohol, no drugs, nothing. Don't bring none of that crap to my house because I know we're going to get cops down here. It's just going to happen, right? Because it's a middle of nowhere house show.
Very suburban.
In a very suburban neighborhood.
Yeah.
And sure as hell, we got the cops calling us. And I love the look on the cop's face when he came to the backyard. And it's just basically a whole bunch of straight-laced high schoolers and some older people kind of like mid-20s hanging out, having fun, just listening to music. Yeah. And the cop shows up and there's nothing going on. He's like, oh, yeah, you're just going to have to turn it down. Like, they were totally looking for stuff.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah, and like we had our light rig up and everything, and the cop was basically like, you're just going to have to move it all inside. And
yeah, move it all inside.
That's going to take me like 2 hours. I just like put a bunch of lights up on the deck. And
you were super frustrated, but you were dealing.
And I knew that was going to happen. Like, it always happens where if we're playing a house show outside, they're like, all right, and the touring band will headline because that's how it works. And I'm always like, not this show because I doubt we're going to get to 10 o'clock before the cops come. So sure enough, I knew we weren't going to get to play our set, whereas all the local bands played. And then they're like, all right, just pack everything up and bring it inside. And I'm like, by the time I get all my stuff in this house, everybody's going to leave.
The one local band was kind of ignorant about it too. Yeah, they were like we're leaving and taking all our fans with us instead of having like
exactly. They were there was one more local band, and it was RPA. So they were like, just bring everything inside.
I wasn't going to call them out. I wasn't going to say who it was. I was going gonna let it ride.
I was like, you guys don't realize how long that's going to take me to do, but okay, let's start doing it. And then they're like, this is taking too long. We're just going to go have a house show with our PA at our house and bring all our fans there. Like,
some people
that's
stayed.
What you want to do. Yeah, a couple people stayed.
Some people stayed. I still thought it was great. Like, I mean, I had fun. It seemed like everyone was kind of demoralized. So I took everybody out to Waffle House. By the time everything was shut down, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We were out at Waffle House getting breakfast. Right.
See, this is all for the video game. Right there.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah. It's like a side mission.
But ever since, there was a few house shows before that too that I think
I told you this before, but like I'm pretty sure the reason that we got called, like the cops showed up, it's because you were saying your band name, like you were saying Rosedale, right? You know, constantly. The street behind my house where the actual like busybody neighbors lived is named Rosedale.
I'm not surprised by that, but
I wonder if they were like, oh, they're just picking, they're trying, you know, some Karen on the other side of the street was just like, yeah, they're talking about us over here.
Maybe
we're gonna call them.
Maybe maybe one of the local bands was mentioning it, but yeah, it was like, I don't know. Everyone's always like, no, man, don't play that venue. I'll just set you up with a house show, and I'm always like, I don't know about that. Like, for some reason, house shows don't really work for me. Even when the cops don't get called, everyone's like really stoked on house shows because it's very like DIY mentality. But I always find that it's like there's an appropriate place to make a DIY show, and there's venues that are DIY venues, or there's venues who are open to DIY artists like myself. Like, I always wondered why musicians like kind of shun that away and just want to, I don't know. We're in a weird time for that, or at least the last few years were. Now we got no live shows at all. Yeah,
it's kind of hard these days, I imagine.
I bet house shows are going to be bigger than ever when all this COVID is like brought down to like a half capacity venues, because bands aren't going to be able to get in venues more than ever. Like, it was really tough for me to book those tours.
Like, as a band, you don't make money from like what the house pays you. You make it from merch sales, right? So like, if there's no one there, then it's just no merch sales, right? Like,
well, I just mean that like when venues open back up, when there's a vaccine or whatever, and they're like, all right, we're gonna allow shows at a small room at House of Blues. Like, a lot of venues aren't even gonna make it, other than like the Live Nation venues and the House of Blues, and maybe some bars that owned the place and had money saved away. Yeah. But in any case, they're all going to be getting filled up by all these bands who had to take a year and a half off.
Oh, yeah.
And then all the like DIY bands who aren't on a major agency are going to be more ignored than ever. So there's going to be more house shows than ever. That's why there's house shows, is bands can't get in the venue, let alone afford the venue.
I still plan on eventually getting that property out here in the middle of Missouri sometime. I'm just going to set up a DIY come when you want stage. We'll set it all up so just come by. Anybody can show up and just come out there. You want to just come out there in the middle of the day and practice? I don't care.
That'd be awesome. There's going to be a lot of shows like that where people are like, I have a big backyard, and you know, I want to have live music at my house. I want to have live shows. I want to support the scene. Hopefully house shows become more accessible than ever. But yeah, that was an interesting one where it was like, if your neighbors aren't willing to have it, which they're probably going to be, there's probably going to be a lot of people freaked out about COVID long after the vaccine comes out that are going to be like, there's a bunch of people having a party next door, even if it's not a house show.
I don't think everyone's going to, if a vaccine comes out, people aren't going to get it first wave. Not everyone's going to do it. Like, and then maybe people wait till second, and maybe they'll wait, I'll wait till, there's more. It's going to happen. People are going to so it's going to take time for it to get disseminated, and then for that to turn into what would be herd immunity to then help keep it from spreading. So it's just, we're probably a couple more years before it'll really be gone enough. And if we're lucky, right? It's a virus. Who knows? This
is a common theme on the show. You don't think live music will be back until December 2022?
I don't know. I hope not. Yeah, but I guess you're right. That would be, if what I was saying was true, then that would definitely put a damper on like live music for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think what'll happen. So, like, I think what'll happen, and without making like any absolute statements of health, right? The people who are interested in live music are the people who are less likely to get hurt by getting sick. But let's just be fair. It's usually the youth crowd, which there are a few that have gotten super sick
with
from it,
strong immune systems because they sweat on each other in the mosh pit.
Oh man,
twice a week.
Right. So I feel like a lot of them are going to go out and do that. Like I just even at some point people are just going to kind of just do what they want to do. Like it's pretty obvious that
if it's legal.
Yeah.
If the venues can even open. I mean, they're going to be the last thing
I think
to open.
it'll be house shows like we were just talking about. It'll just be
it'll
move to house shows, and at which point like there's no license to take from a person. There's no there's no regulation. So then it's like up to the states, the jurisdictions, county rules, etc. for gatherings and whatnot. And a lot of places won't even have rules against that sort of thing. So maybe that's what'll happen. It'll be an underground scene. It'll be awesome.
Georgia, Florida.
Oh my god! It'll be basically back to like the punk rock scene of like the late '80s, early '90s when like you'd have the illegal like shows in the like warehouses that are abandoned in downtown
live
cities.
Music is going to be the new prohibition. It's going to be the new speakeasies.
So amazing. Oh my god!
People are going to be soundproofing their basements.
It'll be amazing. Soundproofing your basements.
You have to know this is the secret word to get down to the show.
There's a house here in Missouri that goes up for sale like every 5-10 years. It's a cave. It used to be a roller rink. I can't remember. It's nearby. It's like south of here by about 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that place.
Yeah, and they sell it. It's either up for sale every few years because people buy it, think they're going to invest in it, and then like they just can't, and then they sell it again. And that would be the place I would buy, because then you could buy it out, you could close it up because it has a huge skating rink in the back. Close it all up. It doesn't need soundproofing. It's a flipping cave. Like, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be a hell of a venue.
Also,
I'd be worried about like rocking out too hard and getting some cave-ins going. Like, that's
too much. You can't bring that bass amp in here. You're gonna bring down the cave. That's funny. But people are also buying houses more than ever because interest rates are so low.
Yeah.
So there's
like I said, my buddy bought a house earlier. Yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of musician or past musicians, promoters that are like, hey, I finally bought a house. I can finally do house shows, and they're going to be more important than ever. Houses are going to be the new venues until you reach a Live Nation status.
If my house was in a giant hill out here, it would totally be a decent place to...
Well, yeah, you are kind of out. Houses now.
I'm still in the city limits, though. See, that's what really frustrating. That house we were at before was outside the city limits, technically.
It was in Arnold too, right?
Yeah, it was in the city, but it was outside the city limits. It was because if you looked at the actual border, it's like a weird spot.
So what does that benefit from?
Well, I wouldn't be subject to the noise laws, noise violation laws. So
or the gathering laws,
right? Or the gathering laws. So at least in that situation, like I shouldn't have. Like the cops probably didn't technically have jurisdiction to shut us down. Technically.
Oh, really?
Right, but I didn't really want to like.
Yeah, you don't want to challenge.
Right, I don't know. Like you probably should. Like we probably should. Like I told the officers do this trick that officers do when they're trying to. They always want you to undermine your personal civil liberties. That's their goal when they communicate with you. And it sounds silly to say that, but I'm not like a paranoid thing.
That's a good way of saying it.
Right. Like, so what the cop does is he says, hey, I'll just follow you down there. And you're supposed to actually, like, he's inviting himself into your property. And there's a thing called curtilage laws, which people don't know about. Like, curtilage laws means the cop can't peer over your fence to look to see if you're doing something illegal. He has to know that you're doing something illegal or have reasonable suspicion.
Right.
Right. And the whole point of the cop asking, well, I'll just follow you on down there when you go back. Like, I could have just turned around and said, sir, this is my private property. I haven't broken any laws. Right now it's a sound ordinance. You've told the homeowner I'm going to go take care of it. I can walk down there and tell them to turn it down. I could have easily told him that.
Yeah. We could have fought for our right to party.
It's plausible that I could have told him to stand there, hey, hold on, it's fine, it's my house, I want to go check on this, right? I'm pretty sure I would have been well within my rights and constructed conversation. Now, like, I wouldn't go all sovereign citizen on the guy. Like, that stuff's hilarious and weird and wrong. But at the same time, you do need to know, like, your rights in situations, right? Like, yeah. I could have, but he was wanting to come down there and catch illegal drinking or something else. And then you could tell that he didn't look at the band. He didn't look at the equipment. He stared at the crowd. That was his first target because he wanted to go and crack some skulls and arrest some kids or something like that. And he's just like, nothing's going on. Yeah, no, we're all good, officer. We're just, all right, well, I guess turn it down then. And he walked away. That was the end of it because he knew he was just looking for something to go after.
Yeah, that's true. And it was only like 8 o'clock. Like, it was still light out.
Yeah, well, that was really annoying to me because it was so early. We didn't even get hardly. I don't think you guys got like a song or two. Like, it was really quick.
Yeah, I think Follow Me Forward started their set. They played like 2 songs and then got shut down.
I walked with my sister. Oh yeah, that's right. My sister was living there at the time too. So I walked with her down the road, because you know how there's like that back road up to the main street.
Yeah.
We could hear you clear as day at the main street. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. There's a reason we got shut down. Like, let's just be honest. Let's be fair about it. Like,
No, it totally made sense that the neighbors had an issue. It's just like there's not much you could do. I was saying this to my drummer friend. Any band that washes their ride cymbal is gonna be a loud band. You can't turn that shit down. Also, I'm such a big dude that when I go to a house and like load in all my gear, I'm just thinking like I would much rather have my own personal space on a stage that I can have for my gear and be playing to a crowd. But evidently a crowd feels more welcome at a house.
When we set up at the bar in Florida. So I got bored, like, it was about 5 years ago, actually, because that's when you were in Florida. It was about 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, it must have been 2015 or 2016.
It's about right. It seems about right.
Probably 2016.
That seems 2016 seems about right. So I was between jobs, and I had a little bit of money saved up, and I was getting, like, just tired of never really doing much, and I just jumped in my Trans Am with a bag of clothes and just drove around the southern states, and it turned out you were doing a show in Florida, and on my way down like, out that direction, I was like, well, I'm going to meet you in Florida, we're going to hang out, and that basically worked out. Like, it was a great.
How many shows did you come to? Just Tampa?
I went to. So I've been to 2 of them here in the city. A couple of bars that you did downtown.
Yeah, San Lou.
Yeah. Yes. And then so when we were in Florida, I followed you along. I rode in the van, and we did I helped you set up at the bar, and then there was an outdoor one we did as well.
Oh yeah. So it must have been.
There may have been 3. I feel like there was at least 2. There could have been a third one, but I just don't remember.
Oh yeah, because that one was like an Orlando brewery, something like that was the outdoor one.
Yes, that's right.
And then there was the Mug Bar.
Yes, the bar. That's right.
In Tampa.
And there was a couple of really cool guys back there that were just like super chill, and they loved your setup too. They were like checking everything out and talking to me at the same time. Like, I kind of like, they like expect me to know everything about everything you were doing. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, that was like a metal show too.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And I because that's a metal bar.
Yes.
And I remember everyone at first, when I first started my set, being like, oh, what is this guy doing on the show, being all pop? But then they were like, this is actually pretty badass because he's by himself. So that's why that's what I liked about being a solo artist. Is if I played with like to a metal crowd or a punk crowd, they would be like, hey, you know what? This sounds like power pop, but it's pretty badass. It's pretty punk rock that it's just him. So it worked out. Plus, you like fixed a bunch of my lights.
That's right. Show. Yeah, we we plumber puttied the screw holes to fix them up so they didn't fall over. They were like constantly doing
steel putty. Yeah, I still have those lights, and they still
that steel putty will last forever. I used that to repair. So I had this. I had a 250, a Kawasaki Ninja 250R, like an 87, a really old motorcycle.
Yeah.
And the valve bodies and the carburetor were cracked in half, like just. It's where the fuel mix. And, so it was cracked open, and I plumbers puttied that back together, and it drove for like 2 years like that. I mean, I didn't put a lot of miles on that bike. I was not much of a rider, but it works.
Steel putty, everyone. If you think
everything.
Yeah, if you think.
I think there's a hunting knife that I had that the handle cracked and shattered away years ago, and so every time I'm doing a project that requires steel putty, I go and I put excess onto the tang of that knife, and I've been slowly but surely filling the handle back in with plumber's putty. Like, just if I do a project and I have a little extra, I just put it on that handle, and eventually I'll fill it all out completely.
think that it's interesting that you are a creator in a different way than any of my friends. Like I've got friends who make things. I've got friends who make music. But you do something that I have no idea how it even works.
It's hard to talk about software development as a programmer and like what it means, like what you can write code in, like what writing code even means to people, right? It's I've tried teaching friends to code too, thinking like I could eventually like they could absorb it through osmosis. Like I'm just here, like have some information, and it never seems to work. Like there's something that seems to prohibit learning it if you don't organically come to it on your own. I don't understand that myself. But.
Well, there's a lot of terms that you probably picked up that would just go right over my head, and like you could go work for a company and they would say this is what we want, and you would think, okay, these are the 20 steps that we would need to do to get there. Whereas I know terms about like production and music and theory that you'd probably be like, what are you even talking totally about?
Just out there. I have a knack for being kind of multidisciplinary. Like there's just all these random things that I kind of like to do. Like I only know about the only thing that occurred why it occurred to me to fix your lights with the plumber's putty, the steel stick or whatever, was because I wrecked that motorcycle was wrecked and it had cracked carb bodies.
Right.
And I was like, well, what do I do to fix this? And my uncle recommended doing that. I'm like, all right, that's what I'll do. And it worked. It was like good enough. It got me down the road and I could drive it for a while. And eventually the floats started leaking and the whole bike would just leak gasoline, which is you don't want to ride a bike that's just got gasoline leaking out of it.
Oh, so it did eventually.
Yeah, so I'm not like a proper mechanic. I don't quite know what's going on inside the carburetor entirely. Like I understand it's an air mix thing, but it's like a thing that's outside my expertise again. But eventually something in it limits the amount of fuel that goes through during the fuel mix, and I was told that it's a float valve or something like that in there, and that was either getting stuck and allowing too much fuel to go through it, and it was just draining fuel out of the carbs, and I didn't know what to do to fix it, and the bike was just so old and it had so many other problems. I just decided that it wasn't worth even looking into to fix it, because I would have to take it somewhere, and it would probably cost as much as the bike was worth to have someone else fix all this stuff. That was part of owning a motorcycle. Everyone's ever told me that if you own an old bike, the best thing you do is work on it, because it's going to be way too expensive to take it places all the time to get fixed. Just fix it yourself. So eventually I had it in storage for a long time. I gave it to a buddy of mine last year, actually. He wanted it as a project bike, and so I finally let it go. I had it in storage like 18 years or 15 years or something like that, like thinking I'll fix it someday and ride it again, but never did.
How do you learn all this stuff?
I don't know. I've always loved to just learn stuff like randomly. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, so I was like, I was 13 when I got my first computer, and I was thinking about this when we were talking about a second ago. I ended up with 2 books as a kid. So I had an IBM PC. It was a compact Presario, like a 924, it was a 486 DX2 66 megahertz computer. And someone gave me this book. I don't know if it's easier to see one way or the other, but it's this is Advanced Assembly Language on the IBM PC. And I had this book, and I didn't understand anything. It was above me. This is like machine code. This is like how the processor actually talks.
Okay.
And it's machine code. It's the lowest possible thing you could ever learn when doing computer programming. So I got that book, and I'm totally going to get up, and I'm going to grab another book.
Yeah, go for it. Because, like, I struggle to learn a new program or even a new website interface.
This was like my Bible as a 14-year-old. I read every single page of this thing and memorized it. This documents every single ounce of the internals of the EGA and VGA graphics cards for the old computers. And so what you could do is you could come in here and you want to learn how something worked, and you'd look up, this is the start vertical blank register, and here's the end vertical blank register, and they would tell you all these little things of how to access these pieces of the hardware. And then combined with that and this, it took me probably a year or so to just kind of constantly reference these books to then understand what the stuff meant. But I could make, I wrote all kinds of games. Eventually someone gave me a C compiler, but I couldn't write C at all. And I was writing all my stuff. This is so kind of silly, but I wrote a lot of my code in Quick Basic and mixed assembler by referencing that book and this book to write graphics programs under DOS when I was like 13.
Jeez.
I took these discs, a disc with all these code, into this place in town where I grew up. I grew up in Piedmont, Missouri, and Roger McAllister was running a software place called McAllister Software. They build a veterinarian, like a complete practice management solution called Avamark. And it just so happened they were in town. My friend was working for him. I walked in with a floppy disk and a couple of the games I'd been writing, like just as a kid. And he had I always tell this is the greatest part of the story. He had so I was running everything on a 66 megahertz computer, and his computer when I came in was either a Pentium 90 or it could have been a DX4 Pentium, like what they called the 586 at the time. I'm sure this is all like random noise to you. It's fine. It's fine. Someone out there would be like, I know this guy. Like, good. I get him. I hope you get me. Yeah. I hope somebody does. But yeah, it would suffice to say he plugs it in his computer and it is running like hand over fist way better than anything I ever wrote. And I'm showing them the games. I made like a Raycaster, which is like an old Wolfenstein clone. If you remember the old block where you can rock around, the old Wolfenstein thing. Or like the old Doom kind of looks like that. Yeah. So I wrote this like a little Raycaster, and then I wrote a sprite-based game from. There was another book I had called The Tricks of the Game Programming Gurus, and that was a friend of mine's book. He loaned it to me for a while. And it
so
had
you started in
CD.
Game programming specifically.
Oh yes, as a kid. And this is so going to Avamark. When I started working there, that's what killed it for me as a developer, because he gets me into he recognizes that I can like at least kind of code, right? So he brings me in and he's like, all right, you got a job. Here's Turbo Pascal. So he gave me a copy of Turbo Pascal, and I had to learn a new language, which I knew was totally alien to me. Yeah. But then he wanted me to come in and do work, and like he had me working on this product, this Avamark. And Avamark was a DOS program that he was porting to Windows 95. And so they gave me Turbo Pascal and copies of Delphi Pascal, and I had to learn those. And what I did for them and the job was I converted a lot of I helped write the tiny pieces of their database engine, which at the time, like, you didn't buy database engines off the shelf. Like you did if you were an expensive product, but it was expensive. Like, if you wanted the stuff at the time was like Foxbase or DBase or something like that. It was just these old, really expensive. Fortune 500s had them. Nobody else did. So if you had an application that needed to store data, you had to find ways of like indexing that data. So like finding it fast. That's an index. And we had to write all of our stuff from scratch. We had to and do all this it's like considered like pretty high level stuff, I would say. But yeah, I was like 15 and I was working. This is the summer I turned 16, so this would have been like 97, I think. And so I did all that stuff. I also wrote like the Avamark veterinary practice management suite that everyone pays like thousands of dollars for to buy. 90% of those your printed reports were actually developed by a 16-year-old guy in the back of a room being taught how to code. And they're like, yeah, we know. Like, it was pretty obvious. But there was it was me and my friend Brandon that did all that coding on that stuff. A lot of those reports, I wouldn't say all of them, but a lot of them we did. Wow. Printed reports, and then a lot of the conversion for the database engine to kind of come in from the DOS version to the Windows version.
Have you got into like programming apps at all?
I do mostly web apps because there's just so much difference between like say an Apple and an Android, and I really like stuff being kind of cross-platform for me. And so if I were to do just like an app for like say Android, I wouldn't know. I couldn't test it for an Apple. I couldn't do a whole lot of like the making sure it worked. And then there's the app stores that you have to go through, and it's like I don't want to vet anything through that. So the stuff I have done for the most part has been web apps based stuff. So
did you go to school? Did you go to college for it?
No, I barely graduated high school. Really? I was that kid that never turned in his homework. He was bored at school. Yeah. Actually, there was a cabal of teachers that basically found me like a week before graduation and said, "You're not going to graduate because you just didn't do any homework this year." And one of the teachers,
too busy coding in the back.
I remember this one experience I had. So like this one math teacher would always let me do homework. He's like, "I'll let you program all your homework. You could turn it in as programming." I was like, "Really? I could do that?" Like, this is a trick. He got me. really good. But it worked. It worked because I really liked doing my homework on code. But he would let me sit on the computers in the back of the class, and these were really old IBM PS2 computers. They booted up to ROM Basic. There was no hard drives on them. They didn't do anything. So it's like they just turned on. Well, I had BASIC, and I could code BASIC, so I sat in a class one day, and I had programmed Tetris several times on my own, like in QBasic at home, and so I just sat in ROM BASIC in the back of the class, and in one class period, having written it a couple times, I actually rewrote Tetris and then played the game on the computer, and there was a kid that turned around in the class and said, "Whoa, where'd you get a game at?" I was like, "I just wrote it," and he was like, "What?" Like it didn't compute, and I just realized then like how ridiculously unique. Like it didn't. It's weird. It's really weird to put like, you might have a unique talent or a skill that you can do things, but like when it slaps you in the face in a way like that, like you just made a video game in 30 minutes in the back of a classroom, that it's like nobody does that. Like it's so rare.
Yeah. I have no idea what is even possible with coding and what it would look like to make a Tetris.
We should do it. Oh my God, we can make that another part of this podcast. Like I can sit there with you and you can watch me code.
Well,
like,
have you thought about doing any like tutorials or YouTube channels of?
Oh, so along with this 3D thing here, I was doing the animation studio. We're talking about the VTuber thing, right?
Yeah.
And so the way that works is that you go and you define art assets that are sort of like triangular tessellations. There's basically triangular meshes.
Yeah.
And you can take those. The goal is to take those into another part of the app, and you can warp the meshes around and animate them. And eventually, I'll synchronize those with an AI on the web as well. So I want to make this whole studio really accessible. I think it'd be fun. It's probably like a year out before I even get like a beta. You know, if anyone was ever interested in checking it, like hit me up. I would love for people to be interested in the product or the tool. Even if you're just interested for the end result, you know, I'll figure out something, you know. But the idea is that you would. So I've been doing all these streams on Twitch recently.
Okay.
So for the VTuber thing, or like the idea of building this animation studio, I've been just kind of walking through my programming process and just kind of doing development on it, and it's been fun. It doesn't get a lot of followers because like the niche seems to be like a weird place. Like you have to be a programmer or interested in watching a programmer, but you also have to be kind of interested in the programming, like the output, right? Like, so what I'm building.
Yeah. Yeah, that like you were saying, that cross intersection is
it's like a
small niche.
Small overlap. So like it's an art studio that you don't paint in, you're just animating things, and it's for a niche market called the VTuber market right now. Like that would be ultimately who would be interested in this, is VTubers. And even them, by the time, like not a lot of them, it's going to be like new and upcoming people that don't want to invest in like the complex tools that exist now and want something that's a little more accessible. Like that's the target market. So it's also going to be like people that, you know, yeah, it's just going to be kind of a hard sell, but it's fine. I enjoy doing the streams and talking the coding problems through. It's kind of like paired programming without another person in a way. There's a sort of a way to code called paired programming.
Okay. I'm assuming you just kind of work together to code.
Two people just sit at the same piece of code, and sometimes they do different, like there's different paradigms of it. Like there's 2 monitors, 2 keyboards, 2 mice controlling the same computer, and you just sort of, you know, hit off between each other, or you just trade places or something like that. And some people drive and some people follow. That's kind of how it works. That's the gist of it.
Do you have a name for that?
So all my stuff online is under my handle Prozac God, which that's got its own story altogether. But yeah, I've been Prozac God since I was 12. That's my shirt actually. Is the timely.
Nice.
We got the shirt that has got the symbol.
Yeah.
And so you can find me on Twitch as Prozac God. I'm under YouTube as Prozac God too.
Sweet.
But there's no name for the product as a whole yet.
Okay.
I think it's actually called Bezier tool, which is like the math form for the warping of the meshes. That's called Bezier tool.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So this is the actual art studio editor, right? You can just come in here, and the idea is I've carefully edited each and every one of these areas to have triangular meshes over them, so that they have the right shape and definition. They keep the information, the triangular meshes keep the definition over the lines, so that when they warp, they don't twist. And so the tool I wrote, like, you can go into add mode, and so I got a new triangle here, And when I click it, I'm editing it. And as I move the cursor around, you can see like a new vertex pops in. And so I can just kind of do this and build a shape. And then at the very last piece of it, I can connect that point to that point, and now I've got that. Or I can just keep building more triangles out. And the idea is it's supposed to help you build these triangles. And the tool actually forces you to build very consistent triangular meshes that your triangles are always in clockwise order. Because that's important to the graphics card, that the triangles should stay in that order. I probably could have just made it a little easier to work with if I just made that a post-processing effect. But this has worked out so well that I just, honestly, it's like, it has undo and redo. I think it has redo. And so this is the part where you set up your art assets. This is a little different than I think the other programs do it. And so what I can also do, though, and I'll show you, this is the part that makes it really fascinating. Is since this is not an actual full product yet, obviously it's just me hacking around here. So this is the warping system. The idea is that you can drag your cursor around here, so these landmarks here allow you to kind of warp. And so the idea is like, this is a piece of this girl's hair, and I can just come in here and pick a subtle transformation of what might happen to her hair in a different position. Like maybe I want it to flutter a little to the left, so I'll just get it to draw a little to the left like that.
Yeah.
Or if I wanted to kind of, so it's all warped. And this is all done client side in the browser, which is really clever. Like it's really crazy how much power you can get.
They can automate it to do whatever they need it to do.
Yeah, and you'd attach this to keyframes and weights. So like as you take in your, let's say you have a webcam going and you have the camera facing you and you move your face around, what's going to happen is I can weight the attachment from my face to this character's keyframes, and it will just animate it into that direction. You could make it turn left when you turn right or something like that if you really wanted to.
Almost like a Snapchat filter.
Yeah, very much like a Snapchat filter. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, this is so this is kind of like programmer art at the moment. This is very much like this tool is showing me that what I'm doing is kind of working. It just, there's examples here of like I can't remember what these do. There are different ways to draw it, but the core of it is this piece here where you can just warp, and it does pretty extreme stuff. You can.
So did you get that graphic and then draw triangles to animate it?
Yeah. So this whole thing is done by I took the graphic. This is borrowed from another program. There's another competitor that does this, and they're called Live 2D, and they're like the biggest person in the space. And so I took one of their examples and was trying to understand how they did it. So I was taking their example apart, and I came up with my mesh editor that you saw earlier. Yeah. And so this is the mesh that I drew over that hair piece.
Okay.
And this Bezier tool here, this is the thing I had to build too. This is a math thing I had to figure out, which I struggled for like 3 days on the stream. The worst is when you're coding and you don't quite know the math that you're trying to solve for, and you're doing it anyway. But I did figure it out eventually. So it took me a while. It was trial and error. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was assuming, is there's got to be a lot of trial and error that goes into this.
So the triangular meshes is kind of like the portion of the artwork, and then you go over to this thing for the warp mesh, and the warp mesh is kind of like, it's what you do to animate. Eventually I get the keyframe stuff and a bunch of other stuff, and it's missing like, it's so sad because I put so much effort in it. It's still missing like 90% of what it would take to even look like what it needs to look like. But
essentially, when it's all done, someone could go on there and be like, I want to make an animation of a kid running and tripping because I want to make this funny.
Yeah, you could do
TikTok
that.
video.
Yeah, what I'm going to target is the AI augmented animation. So the idea is it tracks your face and it rotates, like you just draw the two-dimensional stuff over here. It just rotates and then warps with the way your face moves. And so the goal is to target that market first. But I don't have any reason why it wouldn't work with other stuff. Like at some point, like I got to be careful how much I make it do. But yeah, I'll keep putting features onto it. I might make it open source at some point too. I like open source community. I run Linux on all my stuff, and I'm that crazy kooky guy.
Well, right on, man. We'll put all that Twitch stuff in the description. I got you a little Vocalese
There's one other thing. What was this?
This is a throat spray, all natural ingredient.
Oh, look at that.
They've been sponsoring me for a while, and
this would be great for my streams too.
yeah, if you ever like wake up with a groggy voice or get a sore throat from talking too long,
there is one thing left. See, I've been holding on to a present that I saw. So a friend of mine,
you got me a present.
a friend of mine was giving. This is my gag gift for the year. So,
Nice.
Friend of mine was throwing a bunch of stuff out, and she's younger than us. She's like, I don't know, 21 or 2, something like that. And she was throwing a bunch of old stuff out. Her mom was making her like clean out her house, and I was helping her out because I had the truck. And she was throwing this thing out, and I was like, I have to have this. This is for somebody. I know I'm going to give this to. Mike needs this.
Nice.
So here we go. Sneak around back here. Pulling it out. All right. You gotta close your eyes, man.
All right, eyes are closed.
Okay. Oh. Let's see if we can get it. Hold on.
All right.
Oh.
Oh.
I just totally
I should
bumped
have
the mic.
known it had to do with Taylor Swift when you mentioned a Gen Z.
Yep.
Nice, man.
The Zoomers
Thanks.
come in, man.
Hey,
You're gonna love that.
you know what? I can never have too many bags. I can never have enough bags.
Yeah. I knew you would like the Taylor Swift bag.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks, man.
That's funny.
Thanks. I'll have to post this to the Insta story. Right on. Red too. That was an album that I wasn't too particularly fond of, but there's a couple bangers on there.
I never could pick up Taylor Swift. I mean, there's like some stuff that's fun, but I really couldn't.
Honestly,
not my thing.
I loved her band during Speak Now, and that album was it's a great pop rock album.
I was probably more of a fan of Taylor Momsen than Taylor Swift.
I don't even know who that is.
That's the Pretty Reckless. It's like rock band. They're
Oh yeah, I've heard of that name actually. I don't know. I'm not as cultured as I.
She's probably
should be.
pretty obscure. I don't know how popular she really is, but my sister, I'm pretty sure it was my sister who introduced her to me, and I was like, okay, she kind of rocks. Like, yeah, she's pretty awesome.
Right on, man.
But yeah, there you go,
Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for having me here and letting me do it here. And yeah, until next time.
All right.
We'll have to have you back on when all this is done.
Maybe I'll even have something to show, like more of a product to show instead of just like the B-roll of like me kind of half developing things.
Yeah. Do some screen recording of it, and we'll throw it on the hard drive, and I'll edit it in there. All right, that's it.
It's a wrap.
David Hagler, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, David, for being on the show and breaking everything down for us and hooking me up with this wonderful Taylor Swift bag. I now have a whole new appreciation for software development and Snapchat filters. Check out David's software development broadcasts on Twitch if you want to see this project grow into existence. Just search Prozac God, that's PROZACGOD, on Twitch and everything else. There's a link in the description as well. Big thanks to Vocalese for supporting our voices and hooking David up. You too can get your very own bottle of Vocalese as well as their other all-natural musician wellness products by visiting this link below my head and getting 15% off your order. And thank you for checking out this episode. If you want to see more episodes with other creatives, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and click the notification bell. Follow on Spotify or wherever you're hearing this, as well as Instagram. Share it, like it, leave a comment, a review. And that should be it. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week for another episode of State of My Art Podcast.